the Nintendo Switch 2 launch. Now, obviously, there's no way that you, Nintendo fanboy that you are going to be missing a Nintendo Direct. So, what were your impressions before they started talking about all the icky price details?
I thought it was pretty cool. I did skip through it. I didn't actually watch the whole thing. I thought the camera... It might get some use, but that doesn't seem like a huge killer feature to me. I think having chat, however really bad sounding, I don't know if you noticed that, but I think having chat built into the console is probably good if they weren't going to try to do a partnership with like external chat programs like Discord or whatever else. The dock actually having performance implications, like the dock having a fan in it, which could help keep the system cool, which could help keep performance high, seems genuinely actually pretty cool. And the launch titles seem pretty strong. Mario Kart World, I don't know how excited I am about like free roam driving in Mario Kart. I don't know if I care about that at all, to be completely honest. But the game does look pretty cool. Seems like it supports a lot of players. I like some of the new modes that they're talking about. And considering the Switch's Mario Kart was just a rehash of the Mario Kart from the Wii U, it's been kind of a hot minute since we've had an actually genuinely new Mario Kart game. So that's cool. That's exciting.
Okay. Why don't we talk about the awkward details,
DLSS?
though? Actually, I mean, should we do a bit more of a roundup of everything that we know about the Switch 2 so far?
Sure.
Based on the rumored specs from earlier leaks, which still seem to probably be accurate, we're expecting a semi-custom 5nm variant of the Tegra T239. So 8 ARM cores, one of which is high performance, 3 of which are performance, and 4 of which are efficiency cores. 12 gigs of LPDDR5X at 7,500 megatransfers per second. So that is fast memory. I was surprised to see how much local storage it's getting. 256 gigs. Like, typically Nintendo has been very Apple-like in their hardware. Or I shouldn't say typically. I mean, the Wii U was a pretty decent little piece of kit for the price.
Yeah.
But the Switch, which is the most recent example, was ancient when it was released. Extremely ungenerous in terms of specifications. Whereas this time around, 256 gigs of storage. And now that we've seen the sizes of some of these games, it looks like while you can expand it with a micro SD card, a lot of people probably won't need to. Especially at the cost of the games, but we'll get to the cost of the games in a sec. The big highlight is, of course, the new Ampere GPU, 1536 CUDA cores, 12 SMs, 8th gen NVENC encoding hardware, RTX ray tracing support, and of course, Gen 3 tensor cores that are going to enable AI upscaling. I don't see anything about AI frame generation. NVIDIA did say in a blog post that the Switch 2 has 10 times the graphics performance of the OG.
There was a tweet from like the head of DLSS about there being DLSS on the Switch.
But not necessarily frame gen.
Okay, I see what you mean.
So that's what I don't know. But what I will say is that I was looking as closely as I could, considering that we were dealing with YouTube compression, right? I was looking as closely as I could at some of the gameplay footage, and I didn't see, personally, any of the telltale signs of frame generation.
Yeah.
Even though it'd be pretty much impossible to tell what degree of AI upscaling they're doing if we're looking at performance upscaling or quality level upscaling. And I suspect that's going to vary depending on the title, especially for third-party titles. Voice chat. Man, okay.
I think it's good. I wish it was with third-party providers, but I kind of understand from a family-friendly standpoint that it might be more controllable if it's not.
So tell me this. How do you feel about the fact that, and as far as I can tell, it seems like the chat function doesn't work unless you have a subscription. So you hadn't caught that. Okay. I didn't either prior to our video.
Does that make sense? Is there any online multiplayer on the Switch without a subscription?
I have to confess,
I'm
have
not sure.
never subscribed to Nintendo Online
neither.
out of principle.
Me too. I didn't actually know that, but yeah, I haven't either.
No. No. You need to have Nintendo Online.
Yeah, so that kind of makes sense then. So if you're
Okay.
doing anything online, you're going to have a subscription anyways.
Oh, no, it's worse than that. According to the mighty Reptar, it is free to all Nintendo Online subscribers for the first year.
Wait, chat's an additional fee?
Then chat is apparently going to go behind a paywall.
So then they're going to just keep doing what everyone that I know has been doing, which is where you Discord on your phone
Yeah.
and just play games on your Switch. Because why pay more for Nintendo chat? That's crazy.
Ooh, that's rough.
Some people will do it.
So, man, we're not quite there in terms of going through all the interesting stuff, but we're getting lots of people discussing this in the chat. So I want to talk about this as well. Oh wait, where'd it go? Oh no, where'd it go? Where'd it go?
People are asking where Dan is. Do you want to do the reveal now, or should we do it?
We'll do the reveal later.
All right, you guys
when
will
we
see
talk
later.
about merch messages.
It's pretty cool though.
When we talk about merch messages. Oh, shoot. Well, I missed it. Oh, yes. No, I remember. Okay. As someone who also... So my on principle for not subscribing to Nintendo Online, because I'll subscribe to subscription services. I have subscription services. But for me, the one that really upset me and that made me unwilling to give them money for it was the fact that they lock my save game backups behind Nintendo Online.
That's complete BS.
We are talking about a console that literally has an SD card slot in the front of it. There is absolutely no technological reason why I couldn't back up my save game data to the same physical media that I could easily put a game onto. You have got to be kidding me. And my understanding is that is still how it works. If that is not how it works anymore, then I would consider subscribing to Nintendo Online for some of the cool stuff that it has. But that is completely uncool for a device that is not perfect, could fail, right? And therefore could lose my save games. And B, is portable and much more likely to be lost than something like a living room console.
So there's a bunch of people posting corrections, but it's really not that different than what we said. They're saying important correction. Questionable. Game chat is included in all Nintendo Online chat subscriptions and is free for all users until
March of 2026.
So it's just free for a little bit longer than we said.
Okay, all right.
But it's still a premium subscription.
That is a good distinction. That is a good distinction. It is something that I actually missed in the initial. I had other stuff to do that day, and I'm usually being briefed on like multiple things a day, so I missed that. That was one of the reasons.
People are saying it's not extra on top. I don't get that.
Yeah, so it's included with Nintendo Online, but free for everyone for until March next year.
But. So you can get live chat, but not Nintendo Online. So you can't play games together,
No,
but
you
can
have
talk
to get
together?
Nintendo Online, and they're bundled. It sounds like they're just bundled. So speaking of Nintendo Online, what is your reason for not subscribing to Nintendo Online?
It feels a little ridiculous to me, and I don't actually know what the current state of online multiplayer is on the other consoles. I have no interest in it in any of the other consoles at all. The only reason why I'd be interested in console games at this point is single-player ones, but it feels ridiculous to me in 2025 to have to pay a subscription to be able to play any game online at all. Like, that's enough of a line for me. And again, if I want something, I'll pay a subscription. The most interesting thing to me, I guess, has been access to some of their games that they put on that service. But then I don't like paying subscriptions to access games either. I'd rather just buy it.
Okay.
So I don't know.
Nintendo's strategy for combating scalpers involves gating pre-orders to people who have 12 months of Nintendo Online in their history.
Is it actually?
Oh, you did not watch the Direct?
Oh, I skimmed it.
Oh, you missed a lot.
I didn't know that was a thing.
Yeah. So... And there's
50
more.
50 hours of gameplay.
And 50 hours of gameplay.
Huh.
They are prioritized, but not necessarily gated. Guys, basically, you know what that means, right?
So is this
Those are the guys who are going to get one.
Is this pre-orders directly from Nintendo?
I believe
there's no way
that
they're
is directly
policing that
from
through
Nintendo.
game stores.
Yep. So this is pretty flipping wild. So this is pre-orders on their website. So basically, because they're okay, look, how is anybody else going to control scalpers from buying cartloads of these things? Like, we know, we've all seen the pictures from previous console launches, from GPU launches, right? We've seen the scalpers that have literally a pallet of consoles in their living room, right? So anything that's going out into the channel through Best Buy or through other retailers is going to be scalped. So the ones that Nintendo is controlling, they're basically saying, look, you've got to have a Nintendo Online subscription for 12 months. You've got to have 50 gameplay hours before the launch here. And I don't remember if there was any
gameplay
other stuff.
hours like lifetime?
I think I'm not sure the time period for it. I think it's lifetime. Basically, the idea is that you are a Nintendo gamer and also that you give Nintendo money on an ongoing basis.
I want to show one thing, final correction, because it did sound like this, but I don't think this is what we said. Game chat is included with Nintendo Switch Online membership. Like we said, game chat open access period until March 31st, 2026, but it says game chat can be used without a Nintendo Switch Online membership during that time period.
Yes.
Afterwards, a Nintendo Switch Online membership will be required to use game chat.
Yes.
So yeah, you don't have to, which is really weird to me.
So basically, they want to get you
So
hooked on...
You can play single player games together and chat.
Yeah, I guess.
Sure.
Yeah, I guess. Okay, yeah, no, yeah, now I am having
That's
a hard
why I
time
said
figuring
it's
out-
weird, because you don't need Nintendo Switch Online, which is odd. So you can't play games together as far as my understanding goes.
there's game streaming. So it has a camera.
Okay, so you could show someone you playing your game.
Yes.
So if you're on a trip and little man is playing a game,
Yeah.
you could like watch him play the game and talk to him.
I guess.
I guess.
I can't imagine that I would do that.
For the 4 people that will do that.
So anyway, we're finally getting to this. What is your thought? What is your thought on the fact that you cannot pre-order one? That you are not a verified actual gamer in Nintendo's eyes for not buying Nintendo Online?
I already... This is going to sound like a hot take at first, and then it's not. But I already wasn't going to.
Really?
My reason
Okay,
for
hold
it,
on. We're going to get to that in a sec then.
my-
So let's finish going through. Okay, sure. You know
it's
what?
way less of a hot take once you
Okay,
hear the whole
all
thing.
right. Hit me.
Willow Video Games
Yes.
isn't getting an initial shipment as far as my understanding goes.
Really? Nothing?
They're not prioritized because they're a single store. And apparently
Okay.
who's getting prioritized, at least in Canada, as far as my understanding goes, is the big places with multiple locations.
Sure. So
So
your
they
Best
like
Buys of the world.
they might get a first shipment, but as of right now, they are confident that they're getting games, but they are not confident that they're getting consoles. So
there's
they
no
were
way-
like, they were all apologetic, and they were like, "Oh, like, sorry, you can go buy it somewhere else, I guess." And I was like, "No,
Yeah, because there's no way that you're buying a game console from somewhere other than Willow Video.
yeah." So I'm just gonna wait until they have them, and then I will buy one then. I don't need it day one.
Yep.
I will support the store that I want to support. I will support the like mom and pop store that does cool stuff and has been doing cool stuff like the whole time I've been alive. I've been going to Willow since I was a small child. So I'm not going to just go throw my money somewhere else because I can get a console a couple weeks earlier.
See, I thought you were going to say that you are not going to buy a Switch 2, and that I would have been very surprised about, even though I do think that there are a lot of good reasons not to buy a Switch 2. This one surprised me.
There is a few, yeah.
The Switch 2 is apparently going to be using something between a software emulator and hardware compatibility to play Switch 1 games. There are currently 141 Switch 1 games with known startup issues and 47 ones
Whoa.
with in-game issues on the new handheld. There are
Whoa.
also games that will likely never work, as the Joy-Con 2 is a different shape than the original, like Ring Fit, and it doesn't include an IR motion camera. For example, WarioWare Move It.
Could you do the new standalone camera that they're selling? For WarioWare? Ring Fit is probably screwed because the ring
Yeah.
doesn't mount the controllers like the new one does.
Ring Fit also looks like a mobile game from like the iPhone 3, so I don't think it really matters on that one.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about the price. $450 US.
It's a lot. It's interesting because if you look at Atrioc did this recently, but if you look at the game prices back to like Xbox 360 era, the pricing inflationary wise, as much as it sucks, is technically below inflation rate.
It's kind of incredible that it's as low as it is.
The console, however, is super not. The Switch 2 is notably more expensive than the Switch 1.
Then the Switch 1, yes. But
not necessarily consoles in general.
I have a hot take.
Yeah.
I want to talk about Switch 2 pricing because I think that
it's gonna be scary.
Millennials
it's gonna be dangerous.
And Gen Zs
you're gonna have to put the hot take lights on.
Are having a bit of a, well, back in my day, games used to cost 6 brown eggs and a bale of hay moment.
They did.
Right now.
It's true.
When I was a kid, okay, the Super Nintendo was $199. That is approximately $450 in today dollars.
Yeah.
Now, there is a big difference this time. For these younger generations, earnings haven't advanced on pace.
Really have not.
With that inflationary jump that basically makes the Switch 2 look perfectly reasonable compared to the Super Nintendo. I mean, the NES back in the 1980s. What was the NES? Was the NES $200 as well? I believe so. Don't quote me on that, but I believe the NES was The NES was flipping expensive in then dollars.
179 USD on launch.
But honestly,
cost for inflation would be 523 USD.
But honestly, I think the inflation argument is really tough because you have to consider sort of the emotional side of it.
Yeah, the inflation of what?
Yeah, the inflation of what? Because when you talk about inflation, there's a whole bunch of different factors, and a lot of the things that get factored into the inflation calculation that we get when we look online impact different people disproportionately. So I think what's hurting so much is that this impacts the younger generation harder because it is a more significant part of A, their lifestyle, and B, their discretionary spending.
The lifestyle one is an interesting and probably accurate take.
Because as an older millennial at this point, I look at a console as a luxury item. I have never owned a PlayStation. Never. Even today, I do not own a PlayStation. I have never owned an Xbox. When I was a kid, my friend had a NES.
Yeah.
And then I had a SNES. So we'd go to his house to play. Then we started going to my house to play. And he got an N64 for Christmas. So then we'd go play at his house. Unless, realistically, we wanted to play something other than the 2 game carts that he had for the N64, and then we'd go play, some of my older SNES games.
I cried when my dad gave us an Xbox for Christmas.
Dude, when I was a kid, consoles were a luxury item. Not everyone had one in my class, and no one, not a single other kid I knew had 2 current gen consoles at the same time. And a typical game library.
For sure. Yeah.
A typical game library was 5 games if you were doing pretty good.
Yeah, a lot of people had less.
And if you had 10 games, it was
you were balling.
Whoa.
It made me question what your parents did for work.
But hold on. But here's another thing. Here's another thing that's different. Back then, we could go to the video store
and rent.
And we could rent a game.
And I do it all the time.
For $5.
Yeah.
Right? And you could realistically, because so many of the games were, let's be honest, pretty 2-dimensional experiences, pun intended. Right?
Oh, we have a ding! I didn't actually know.
Let's go.
Did you hear it? I wasn't sure.
Yeah, I heard it. I don't know if they did, but I heard it.
You could actually enjoy that game in a 1-week rental for that $5.
And that was honestly, this is a slightly off-topic thing, that was fun. It was kind of a challenge. can I beat this game before I have to return it?
Yeah, absolutely.
was genuinely like kind of fun. I forgot about that.
But I'm going to continue going back and forth in my attempt to sort of present both sides of this. I was going to say, I was trying to say argument, but outrage almost came out of my mouth. Both of which are true. It is an argument and it is outrageous. And let me put it this way: pound for pound, is gaming not just about the cheapest form of entertainment on the face of the earth? So here's some numbers that I ran before the show, okay? If you bought a Switch for $300 and a library of 10 $60 games, I'd say that's a pretty generous library. If you used that for even 1 hour per week for the 8 years that the Nintendo Switch was Nintendo's current console, it would have cost you just over $2 an hour. Can you think of anything in your life that you actually pay for that is even close to that?
No, and I bet you were honestly really conservative with that.
You know what? Reworksman says reading is cheaper, especially with a library card. That's a good point. And that's valid. What else?
Okay,
What else
with
we
a
got?
library card, yes. If you're buying the books, honestly, I don't think so.
No, if you're buying books, absolutely. Well,
I don't think so.
it depends. No, you can get decent deals, and depending on the speed at which you read. No offense.
For me,
I suspect you're getting. I suspect your cost per hour is pretty good.
I've been dedicating really hard. I've been reading like an hour a day every day for while now, and I'm getting a little faster, but I'm still slow.
Okay, give me something else. Give me something other than reading.
Music, but like, dang, I would never really want to do just that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So here, this is hilarious. Top Gear 1224 says, we're going to talk about Smash Champs pricing. Actually, we are.
Yeah.
Actually, we are. Here, check this out.
And it's a good point.
That is, Luke laptop. Whoops.
Yeah,
Linus
what
laptop.
are you doing?
There you go. We are going to talk about that. At Smash Champs, okay? That's our badminton center. I regularly watch people discard a $3 badminton shuttle. That's about what a single badminton shuttle costs, and that's not even a high-end one. They can go up to $4+ Canadian dollars. Okay, I regularly watch people just throw it away because it isn't flying perfectly, so that they can continue their match that's costing them, between the 4 people on court, about $8.50 an hour, plus racket and shoes and other equipment costs, plus their club membership fee, plus gas money for travel. They don't question it because they see the work being put into it. They see the physical space being occupied. If we switch 2 numbers into my math before, okay? And if we assume a shorter lifespan for the console, let's say we only get 6 years out of it, we end up with $4.32 per hour of entertainment. And again,
but you're still going off of 1 hour a week, which I honestly think is really low.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. That assumes
like low enough to throw it all off.
But my point is that even if we say, well, Linus, your math is suspect, I feel like by saying you will use your Switch just 1 hour per week.
Yeah.
I can pretty much defend against that, because if you're not going to use your Switch an hour per week, why do you even care about any of this? Don't buy one. Like, that just seems pretty obvious to me. Or remember, guys, there's always another way. Okay, this was a really I don't know, interesting conversation for me, frustrating conversation to me. I don't know how to describe the mixed emotions that I had. And I'm about to say something that'll probably cost me some money, all right? There was a thread on the forum recently asking why the heck it is that Floatplane doesn't have regional pricing. Okay, why we're asking a ludicrous sum of $5 per month for people who live somewhere where that is a significant portion of their disposable income, okay? What little disposable income they have. And I could have given them a long technical explanation about, VPNs and gray market and the realities that our business runs on, Western monies, not, rubles or whatever. And so, it wouldn't even help our costs. Like our costs are in Western monies, and we don't operate at the kind of scale of someone like a YouTube or a Netflix. I could have done a whole thing about that. But instead, what I said was, why don't you subscribe to Floatplane for 1 month, download every video you want to watch, and then unsubscribe, and then do it again next year.
We don't stop you from doing that.
People gotta get more creative. It's like I don't understand why people are not thinking about, like, if something is not affordable, okay? If you told kid me, okay, I'm 14, I'm 15, okay? You told kid me, hey, this new console is $450. I'm going to go, okay, what are the games I want to play? And I'm going to go, all right, can I still buy used games? Okay, I'm going to wait for, usually it takes like a week or two, because people will run out, people with more money than sense will run out and buy a game, not having read a single review, not having watched any gameplay footage.
Play it, not like it.
Not like it, and they'll take it back to GameStop, all right? That's their problem. That's not your problem. That's your benefit.
Yeah.
So you wait a little bit, you pick up a console used from someone who bought it and realized, oh, actually, I don't use this that much. You wait a little bit. When you buy something secondhand, the worst of the depreciation curve, that comes off from the first owner. So you buy that console, you play those couple of games, you flip them. It didn't happen for free. Okay, you had to actually shell out that money. You had that cash tied up. It affects your cash flow, and you might not get back exactly what you paid. But it's a Nintendo. You know for a fact that there isn't going to be a new one 6 months from now. So if you were to buy one secondhand for, 2 months in, you know for a fact that you could hold on to it for a few months, play the games you want to play, and it'll probably cost you total somewhere in the neighborhood of like $50 to $75 in depreciation on those purchases. Get creative.
Yeah. I don't have much to add. Just, yeah. You can also even, like, if you wait a little bit longer, you can wait till there's like cool models on the used market. Somebody mentioned like, oh, but GameStop isn't going to exist. It's like, okay, cool. Cut out the middleman. Go to Facebook Marketplace.
Yeah,
and it's not a stopper.
And I know that not everyone has a super active Facebook Marketplace in their region or whatever else. But where there is something being bought and something being sold, there will be a platform.
KG4WWN, I think that's your name, said that's a decent way to do it, but if everyone did it, the system would fail. Fun fact, guaranteed, not everyone will do it.
Yes. Because not everyone is as smart as you. Or not everyone cares as much as you. I remember, I'm not going to name names on this one, but I remember having this conversation with a relative of mine who I grew up with. We grew up not like desperately poor, but we grew up with like cutting coupons, washing eggs in our spare time, and running like a family like egg business on our hobby farm, like being pretty scrappy.
I think there's a lot of benefit to that.
By the end of the summer, my parents are both teachers, okay? So by the end of the summer, we're trying to figure out like, okay, do we really need how to combine as many errands as possible into one car trip to town so that we don't have to fill the gas tank? Like, we're out of money, okay? At the end of August, beginning of September. So that was my situation. And shoot, what did you say just before this? I forget. Right. A relative of mine. I remember having a conversation with a relative of mine who was like aggressively haggling at like a liquidation place or like a secondhand, like a Value Village type of place. Like they were trying to like get a deal on something. And I kind of went, I'll never be too good to shop at a dollar store. All right? Like, never.
Yeah, 100%.
But does someone else maybe need that marked down merchandise a little more than us? Like, do we need to grind them so hard? Right?
Yeah. I feel this way. Oh man, is this a hot take?
So I'll tell you guys. I'm gonna buy Switch 2. I'm not gonna pay scalper prices. I won't do that because again, that's just on principle. But I'm gonna wait till it's in stock in a store, and I'm gonna walk in and I'm gonna buy it. And I'm not gonna worry about that. And if my impulse purchase that I can afford benefits someone else later, then great. Someone at our Christmas party got my launch Switch because I didn't need it anymore because I bought an OLED and I'm a big idiot and I didn't consider that I had a launch Switch that was moddable. Realistically, I buy all my Nintendo games now anyway, so it didn't really matter. But still,
now somebody has a moddable one.
Dang it, I had a moddable one,
cool.
But now someone else has a moddable one. And so, no, not everyone is going to use these strategies. With that said, that's a really good point that if a growing number, if a disproportionate number of people do use these strategies, it actually does have an impact on the secondhand market. And look no further than what happened to the auto market during COVID, where used vehicles suddenly cost more than a new vehicle. Like what was that? Also, brace, that could be happening again. We're going to have a tariff conversation a little bit later. That's the other part of the title of the show. We'll talk about that later. But
people are also mentioning this in relation to the Switch because it was announced at whatever $450 or I think it was $499 with Mario Kart World.
Yeah.
But people are pointing out that Nintendo has already put out an announcement saying that I think they're not doing pre-orders in the U.S.
Well, their pre-order date is delayed.
Got it.
The launch date is not delayed, but the pre-order date is delayed, and they were explicit that this is because of their need to evaluate the situation around the tariffs.
And I'm not recommending you do this, but Canada isn't going to have tariffs on them. So it should probably still be about that price up here. And I think if something was used, you could bring it back over the border. It wouldn't be tariffed.
Oh, yeah. Right, like if say for example all of the packaging
do at your own risk
found its way into the dumpster behind the
and maybe
Willow Video where you bought it.
Had some maybe if you had some save games on it already or something, so you could prove that you've used it before.
Yeah.
I
mean, it's pretty new anyway. Like you would have had to get it like somewhere kind of in the last little while window. It would look pretty new regardless, right?
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, we would never. Livin says all strategies are valid until you get audited. What do you mean audited? No one audits. No one audits things you bought. That's because it's there's no taxation.
We're not really suggesting anything. We're just saying it's probably going to be not as bad for. I mean, it's still expensive, but it's not as bad for Canadians.
Electrobot says IIRC. You do have to report that technically, legally. Of course you do.
Yes.
This is not legal advice. No, this is not only not legal advice. This is not advice at all.
Yeah.
It's not advice.
Yeah, all we're doing is pointing out that Canada's not tariffing them.
That is true.
Yeah.
That is true. And if you didn't happen to live anywhere near the northern border, I doubt that Mexico has any tariffs on
probably not
the Switch 2 either. I have no idea what like Mexican Best Buy is.
Yeah.
But they might have something like that would have a Nintendo Switch. So that's something that is a thing that is something. Anyway.
Game upgrades. Should we talk about that?
Let's talk about game upgrades. This is another thing that, man, I'm bummed about. So we talked about the sort of emulator element. See, I assumed, and maybe this is just me being naive, because I'm sure the software is so different. And by software, I don't even just mean like the home screen looks different. I mean like the driver level operation of this console is going to be so different. I'm sure that the software development kit is completely different. I'm sure all the developer tools are completely different. But I had kind of hoped that because it was ARM CPU, NVIDIA GPU,
it would just direct.
That you would basically just put your Switch 1 game in it and it would run at higher FPS.
That's when I was skimming through the Direct, I thought that's what they meant, was it would just work.
So, unfortunately, that does not appear to be the way that things are going. Instead, it looks like it'll be a mix. Some of them are going to just kind of work in the Switch 2 with minor changes. The only one that I really cared about, the only game where I ever really felt like the Switch's underpowered hardware dramatically impacted my gameplay experience was Breath of the Wild.
Yes.
I wanted Breath of the Wild at least rock solid 60. And once I found out about the 120 hertz display, what I realistically wanted was between 60 and 120 with variable refresh rate.
And I think there was a massive, massive boom in emulating right around Breath of the Wild, because I don't think you were alone. A lot of people had issues with the performance of that game, and a lot of people sought out other solutions.
I still don't fully know exactly what the situation is with Breath of the Wild. So chat, if you guys have more details than me, I think the rumor is that these upgrade packs are going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of, this is interesting speculation from, it doesn't actually say who the writer was for this project here, but listings for Switch 2 games are ranging from 70 to 90 USD. And so with that in mind, they're speculating that the upgrade packs could be 20 US dollars.
Or more.
I hope it's less.
Me too.
I was hoping for like 10 I was hoping for 10, thinking probably 15. If it's 20, that is way too much to spend on an upgrade for a game that realistically I played as much as I really needed to play 7 years ago.
Here's an interesting question. Is the first version compatible? Because it might be. You just might not be able to run it at high resolutions. And
but I don't want to run it at 30 FPS.
No, I know. I'm just
at least
saying.
It'll be a solid 30 FPS this time. But like,
Maybe.
there's FPS elements to it. I have to aim the bow, and it would drop to like 17 frames per second. Like, it's not obviously I enjoyed the game. If I'm being honest, it's probably my favorite game ever. Right? Like, I love Zelda Breath of the Wild. I didn't get into Tears of the Kingdom because it just felt like Breath of the Wild again.
So are you going to buy an upgrade pack for your favorite game ever?
I don't want to play it again. I didn't even buy the DLC. If I wanted to play Breath of the Wild
You're just
again,
happy leaving it there?
I'd probably buy Tears of the Kingdom. Yeah, I put a freaking ton of hours into it.
I've
like
heard extremely
250
good
plus
things
hours.
about Tears of the Kingdom.
Me too, but I got a little ways into it and I was like, I even bought it. And I was just like, this really feels like Breath of the Wild again.
Yeah.
Whereas Breath of the Wild was like just such an outstanding...
Breath of the Wild and The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom will be free for Switch Online plus expansion pack subscribers.
Yeah, but I don't have
free.
Switch Online. Yeah, that means you pay for it in installments.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, what else we got to talk about here? You're going to buy Mario Kart World, obviously, right? So you buy it in the bundle?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Discussion question, what do you think of the pricing of the console and games? Okay, actually, I'm going to alter this one a little bit. How do you think Nintendo's new game pricing paradigm will... What shockwaves do you think this will send throughout the rest of the gaming industry?
I immediately saw people talking about how stoked Rockstar must be with their like very possibly $100 GTA 6 coming, with this $90 shift for Nintendo, softening that blow from closer to a $20 jump to closer to a $10 jump.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I mean, we've been talking about this for a long time about how game prices are going to be cooking over the next little bit. There's been incredible inflation over the last few years. And, you know, it hits everything, so I'm not surprised it's going up. In Canada, this is going to suck. If the Canadian dollar is rough right now, Canadian average GDP per person has been, like, essentially flat for 10 years. Like, this is going to be very rough for any Canadians interested in buying Nintendo products. And Nintendo products sell, man. Like, regardless of economic situation, regardless of practically anything, Nintendo products move.
We did an episode of Setup Doctor where we did a setup, we cured the setup of a viewer, and they literally have a collection of Nintendo Switch games that is like an entire wall, like an entire bookshelf. Like, I think they said they had almost every game or something like that. And I'm looking at this going like 100, 200, 300, 400, 1,000, 2,000. Like the amount of money in it is wild. Like, in Canadian dollars, which, by the way, are what we earn, right? Like, we are We don't really earn proportionally more Canadian dollars compared to US dollars. Like, in Canadian dollars, a Nintendo game's like $90 already. And that stings us almost as hard, not quite, but almost as hard as a $90 US game would sting a US buyer. Welcome to the party.
It's tough. It's tough. Yeah. So like the same thing that I said last time is honestly, I understand it. Games have not really tracked inflation super hard. I think there's arguments for games being behind inflation, but then there's very, very, very strong counter arguments for, yeah, but back then you used to get the whole damn game. Now you have to buy DLC or there's skins that aren't included. And when you're like, oh, but skins are just cosmetics.
Don't forget about your subscription to play online.
Yeah, that's rough and stupid as well. But back in my day, there wasn't skins for cosmetics in fully paid games. It was just like League of Legends. And there used to be like quest chains and content that you would do. And the reward was those cool looking things or whatever else. So there's content that is missing from your game. You are not getting a complete game if the game includes paid skins, in my opinion. So yeah, that's rough. And there's a certain amount of like, will the market bear it?
Dyslexic Stoner for 240 brings up a really good point here that I had actually meant to discuss earlier. Game devs are going to have to decide if they want margins or high player counts. Yeah. And this was something that I had wanted to include in the discussion around how the fact that, how the SNES was the same price when I was a kid as the Switch 2 is today when you account for inflation. But the gaming industry is
way bigger.
Orders of magnitude larger than what it was when I was a kid. And games were for kids, and game consoles were luxurious, incredible presents for children from their parents. Like it wasn't, and we didn't have, there was no phone, right? So I didn't get a phone.
An interesting thing.
So that would be the equivalent, right? Like, your, like kind of cheapo Android phone that your parents might give you when you're 10. And don't kid yourself. A lot of my kids' friends have phones by about 10. If they get one of those, well, they would get no game console. Like that was what we got instead of having a phone or an iPad or whatever else. So if they want the volumes that they have enjoyed over the last 10 years, they may not see them. And in that sense, even if the Switch 2 ends up being a very profitable generation for Nintendo, it may not go anywhere near their podium in terms of the volume of game consoles sold. Like if you look at Nintendo's most sold consoles, what was it? It was some DS of some form or other, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Is their top one, if I recall correctly. That was really affordable. Super affordable.
Yeah. To your point on it being like presents for kids, up until the Switch, most Nintendo consoles came out in like September or November, close to holiday season. Yeah. And then the original Switch came out in March. Because now people just buy consoles all year round. But
so
I remember when I was a kid, it was just Christmas that everybody got consoles.
Oh yeah, it was a Christmas present or nothing else. So I think I've told the story before about how my Super Nintendo was actually stolen before it was given to me. So my aunt got me the bundle with the 2 controllers and Super Mario World, and but it was actually, she was robbed like in the week before Christmas, and she moved heaven and earth to try to find me another one, and couldn't get like the bundle one. And so it was funny because I still remember this. She apologized to me on Christmas morning that it wasn't like the one that I could play with my friends. But dude, I was just so stoked to have a Super Nintendo at all. Like, I was like, what are you even talking about?
We can share the controller around. Who cares?
It's like, this is so cool. Don't worry. No. My aunt, she found me a Nintendo. I don't know how she did it. Of course
she did.
I had one on Christmas morning. It just didn't have 2 controllers. And I don't think it had, did it have Super Mario World? It definitely didn't have 2 controllers. There were 2 versions of the console. Dude, my aunt's amazing. She is one of the closest members of my extended family. She comes over every week, spends a ton of time with our kids. She is actually If I wasn't married to Yvonne, I would say my aunt is the best lady in the entire
really cool.
in the entire world.
Yeah.
She's incredible.
D. Hollinger said, I'm going to point out again.
You're number one.
I'm going to point out again that game devs make less with fewer
Actually,
benefits.
you know what? My mother-in-law is actually amazing too. Words that have never been said before in that order.
That's true. Unless you're like at practically gunpoint.
Gilmore D, yes. This is the aunt that gives me art, like that Yoda, that weird Yoda that's in my gaming room. And yes, this is the one that makes me borscht.
All right, D. Hollinger. I'm going to point out again that most game devs make less with fewer benefits than non-gaming counterparts too. Also, AAA game companies may need to go back to making AA games instead of AAA games that cost more to make the blockbuster movie. I have thoughts on this. One, a lot of the game devs making less with fewer benefits is because it's in a lot of ways, in my opinion, a predatory industry where people want to work. People say they want to make games from when they are very young, and it is a dream and an aspiration. So gaming companies kind of abuse them. Also, gaming companies needing to go from AAA to AA. I don't know. There's good games out there that sure sell a heck of a lot, and there's a lot of trash games out there. So
yeah, both
maybe
in
make
the
better
AA and
games.
AAA categories.
Maybe if you're making quadruple A games that just suck, they're not going to sell at all. And maybe if you just made the game that everyone on the freaking planet asked you to make and then sold it, people would be really happy with that.
Which specific
and would
game
have
are you
bought
talking
it.
About?
Skull and Bones.
Oh,
they called it a quadruple A game.
Oh no, I mean, you mean if they had just made it like Assassin's Creed?
Just make Black Flag, but take the Assassin's Creed part out because no one cared about the Assassin's Creed part. Even I'm a huge Assassin's Creed fan.
Yeah.
Did not care about the Assassin's Creed part. I never beat Black Flag.
Really?
I played the heck out of that game. The worst part of that game is all of the assassin-y parts that you have to do until you get your boat. When you get your boat, the game is amazing. Just make that. Like, my God. Not listening to fans, making huge, giant art pieces that no one wants, focusing on the wrong things, not making games actually fun. Like, anyways, there's a reason why certain companies in the gaming space are struggling, and there's a reason why other companies in the gaming industry are thriving right now. And a lot of them are newer, a lot of them are offshoots. You can't look at the gaming industry and say that it's necessarily doing super poorly when we had massive, like,
huge profits
and huge cultural moments. Like Helldivers changed how people communicated on the internet for a substantial period of time. Like, people were like oddly patriotic because of a video game for like months.
Yeah.
Baldur's Gate 3 was enormous.
Huge moment.
There's still these huge, crazy launches.
Yeah, and not always like AAA games. I mean,
neither of those are technically AAA.
Look at like Fall Guys. Okay, it was a little longer ago, but Jude. That Pal World. But the
common thread here is that they're fun.
Yeah.
A lot of AAA games just like genuinely aren't that fun anymore. And it's like, that's the problem. The problem, in my opinion, isn't the fact that they're AAA games. The fact is that they're not just fun. They're missing the core component of what a game is supposed to be.
Yeah, DME95 says Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 is amazing and came from a smaller studio that got its original start on Kickstarter, of all places.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. Anyways, I think devs being paid less on average in the gaming industry is not necessarily a reflection of the cost of a game cart.
But you've also talked about how you think that there's something of a great reset happening in the game industry right now, where talented people are losing their jobs, not because they've done a bad job, but because companies do company layoff things.
There's amazing games with great sales and great reviews that are having their entire teams get laid off.
And then those people are going to go and they're going to start up. They're going to, whether they do indie solo games or whether they start small studios, some of those are going to make it to market and those people are going to reap the rewards and their companies are going to grow. And then
what I'm seeing as AAA games failing is less AAA games failing, and it's more giant, old, behemoth, slow, bad companies starting to take it on the chin. Because you're seeing games like Baldur's Gate 3 is not a AAA game.
Right. I
But
mean,
if
it's
you-
AAA in terms of the quality.
Exactly. But if
Yeah.
you look at it in the way that almost everyone would ignorantly evaluate games as AAA or single A or whatever, without being in the industry, everyone's going to think it's a AAA game.
Right.
It looks great. The story's incredibly
Voice
deep.
acting.
The voice acting is
outstanding.
amazing.
Yep.
All these things that you would expect from a AAA game are in Baldur's Gate 3. I understand there isn't a ton of modes and stuff for Helldivers, but I bet you most people would look at Helldivers and think of it as a AAA release.
Yeah.
And it absolutely wasn't. So like it's more the type of company that's failing in my mind instead of the type of game.
Okay. Athos asks you, would Breath of the Wild be a AAA game?
I don't remember. I don't remember the exact defining features, but I think it is.
I would think so. I mean, it's to me like, is it well defined? Because I'm sure
I think
Nintendo
it
spent
is.
the money on it. It sold consoles like it, or was expected to. I would say there's kind of part of being AAA is like an expectation of performance in the market.
AAA refers to high-budget blockbuster titles with extensive resources, while AA represents games that fall between indie and AAA in terms of budget and resources. So that's why I would say like Larian Studios and Arrowhead, so Baldur's Gate 3 and Helldivers are in the AA category. They're not an indie game. It's not 2 to 5 devs, but it's also not EA Games or Ubisoft or Bethesda or whatever making it. So yeah, I would think that Breath of the Wild would. I wasn't sure because it was like first party to the manufacturer of a console. I wasn't sure what that meant, but that absolutely falls under it based on this definition at least.
Makes sense.